Hello and welcome back. I am Torn City Tim. Today we're going to be talking about gem gains in Torn City. So I'm going to assume that you've already seen two previous videos, the 3 key steps and also the ultimate guide for beginners on my channel. If you haven't already seen those, it would probably be a good idea to go back and check those out real quick. So as we get into a little more of the detail of gem gains, there's a lot going on here, and I made reference to this in a previous video. And I'm going to make this into kind of a micro playlist. So anybody focused on gem gains, I would encourage you to check out that playlist, which will kind of touch on all these topics that we need to get to when it comes to gem. All right, so as previously discussed, gem is basically the use of energy combined with high happiness is going to yield a good session in the gym. As a general statement, the more happy you have, the better your gains are going to be. And the more energy you use during that training session, the more gains you'll have as a result. All right, so we're going to start off today talking about energy. And that's this green bar right here. Now, your bar may not look quite like mine. You may have a maximum of 100 or possibly 150, and we're going to talk about that in greater detail here in just a minute. When it comes to energy, there's a couple things worth mentioning. First and foremost, energy is arguably your most valuable resource in the game, so you want to use it effectively every chance you get. Secondly, this bar naturally refills as indicated by this text to the side here. And at the point where the bar is full, whether it's 100 or 150, it will stop regenerating naturally. So one thing you want to always try to avoid is having a full energy bar for any length of time. All right, so to get into a little more detail, I'm going to jump over to a spreadsheet. Now, using a spreadsheet for this may seem a little silly, but it's really going to paint a very clear picture of what's going on when it relates to energy. Now, when I say standard user, that's the brand new player out of the box, no changes to their status, namely donator status. And with a standard user, you're going to get 5 additional energy every 15 minutes for a maximum of 100. Which means in a day you can have a maximum of 480 energy. The other thing worth pointing out is that it takes 300 minutes or 5 hours for the energy bar to go from completely empty to completely full. Now with an upgrade to donator status, you're going to get 5 energy every 10 minutes, and the maximum amount in your bar is going to be 150. That means that your maximum daily energy from natural regeneration is going to be 720. More specifically, you're going to get 240 additional energy daily from being a donator, which is 50% more energy. And like with the standard user, the donator is also going to have a full bar in 5 hours. Now, something I want to talk about here briefly as it relates to this maximum amount. This isn't truly the maximum amount. This is where your natural regeneration will stop. You can technically have up to 1,000 energy, and this is a topic for another time. But basically know that when I say maximum, that's when the natural regeneration will stop. All right, so to get donator status, I recognize that not everybody wants to put real money into this game, and that's totally okay. However, if you are a monthly subscriber, you're going to get this donator status for roughly $5 American per month, which is, in my mind, a great value considering that you're probably paying this far more than you did some far more expensive title on PC or Xbox or whatever you might have played before. Now, if you don't want to use real money, paying for donator status with in-game currency is an option. And this is going to cost you roughly $25 million or about $833,000 per day to be a donator. This means you're going to pay about 3,472 Torn dollars for a single point of energy. The other thing I want to point out is that being a donator does not require any cooldowns, so this won't impact your ability to use candy, beer, other things like this that you should be using as often as you can. All right, now I want you to kind of mentally remember this number because this is going to become more and more relevant as we get further into this. One of the most common questions I see from new players is how do I get more energy? And we're going to go through these from the cheaper options to the more expensive options for the purpose of helping you understand how to get the best value for your Torn dollars. All right, so one option is to get a point refill. You can buy points in the points market and then use those points in the point building to do a refill. All right, so we're back in Torn. We're going to go here to City. And then we're going to go here to points market. And this is where we would buy points with torn dollars. And once we have 30 points, we can go here to the points building. And we can purchase a refill here. Now you can do this once every 24 hours, which is why you see this countdown clock here. All right, so at the time of recording, this points refill is going to cost you roughly $1 million torn dollars. This means if you're a standard user, you're going to get 100 energy for using these points or this money. And it's going to cost roughly 9,600 per energy point. Whereas with the donator status, you'll get filled up to 150 energy, which means you're going to pay more like 6,400 torn dollars per energy point. Another thing I want to point out before we leave refills is that here again, there is no cooldown usage. You can only do this once per day, but this will not affect your booster or your drug cooldown. All right, another very common way of getting energy is by using Xanax. All right, so Xanax is going to give us 250 energy per Xanax, and it doesn't matter if we're standard or donator status. So assuming we can get 3 Xanax in per day, this means we can potentially get 750 additional energy every day. And assuming a cost of $820,000 per Xanax, that means we're going to pay roughly 3,280 torn dollars per point of energy. This, by the way, is cheaper than the donator pack option. And Xanax is also cheaper than the point refill option. For those who have never used Xanax before, I want to point out this article in the wiki. The Xanax is going to increase your energy by 250 and increase your happiness by 75, and it includes side effects. Side effects are listed here. The most notable thing as it relates to Xanax is if you happen to overdose, you're going to lose all of your energy, all of your nerve, and all of your happy. This, by the way, is easily cured by getting a single tick of rehab in Switzerland. One problem that arises for players who are not yet level 15 is if they overdose, they have no way of dealing with the overdose effects. All right, so moving on to another source of energy, this would be energy cans. And you can see here I put some prices in for various types of cans, anywhere from 5 energy per can to 30 energy per can. I've also listed here that you can get anywhere from 60 to 360 energy per day, and what the cost is going to be per point of energy. Even the most inexpensive can is going to cost more than Xanax and other better options for getting energy, especially early game. A lot of mid to late game players will use Feathery Hotel coupons, which are even more expensive, amounting to roughly $84,000 per point of energy. It's also worth noting here that both energy cans and Feathery Hotel coupons are going to eat into your booster cooldown usage. Another common way to get energy is by buying the McSmoogle Corp stock benefit block. And you can see here that you're going to get 100 energy every 7 days. In order to buy this stock block, you need 350,000 shares valued at roughly $265 million at the date of recording. If we compare the cost of $265 million against the cost of 4 25 energy cans, this means it would take us roughly 30 weeks to get our money back for our initial investment. Although going forward, you never have to pay for that 100 energy ever again. In addition, there's no cooldown usage associated with McSmoogle. All right, so recognizing that I threw a lot of information at you just now, here is how I would prioritize your spending as it relates to getting more energy. First and foremost, I would rent a private island with airstrip that has 4,225 happy or more. This is going to cost you about $840,000. Second, and assuming you can afford it, I would get 3 Xanax into your daily routine as soon as possible. This is going to cost you roughly $2.5 million additional dollars. The third priority would be to get donator status. This is going to cost you roughly $830,000 per day. And then finally, I would prioritize getting point refills daily, which is going to cost you nearly $1 million. What I'm trying to show you here in this column is that as you progress to each progressive level, you know what your daily costs are going to be in round figures. By the way, if you'll get married in-game and split the cost of the private island with a spouse, you can cut this cost in half. So as it relates to this range of cost, most players who are actively trading and selling plushies and flowers can expect to get somewhere between $3 to $5 million daily. So depending on how successful you are in that regard, it's going to determine where you can go with your spending. Unless you're actively putting real money into the game, it's highly unlikely that you're going to progress much further than this with your daily income unless you do really well in ranked wars or some other means of getting money. Anyone who's watched my videos before knows that I'm a big fan of passive income. More specifically, investing money in things like the bank, which is going to generate constant recurring income without the need for any amount of work. As you can see here, I currently have $2 billion invested in the bank on a 2-week term. This is going to generate nearly $52 million every other week for doing absolutely nothing. Recognizing that it will take a new player quite a while to save up $2 billion, I just want to emphasize the value of doing this. This $51 million is $3.7 million per day on top of my $3 to $5 million that I get by traveling. At the point where you have this kind of revenue coming from passive investments, you're really going to start to snowball and grow your wealth. Only at the point where you have that kind of passive income would I even entertain the idea of using energy cans, FHCs, or buying McSmoogle. These items are just too expensive for a new player to be spending money on them. And oh, by the way, if you happen to find these items in the city, I would encourage you to sell them and invest the money in the bank. At the point where you can do all 4 of these things daily, I want to point out the net benefit to your account. As I said earlier, the standard user is going to get 480 daily energy. Combine that with donator status, 3 Xanax, and a point refill will bring the net total daily energy to about 1,620. This is a 338% increase. This is huge for the growth of your account. In the next video, we'll cover happiness and how it benefits you in the gym. If you have any questions about energy, don't hesitate to reach out to me in the comments on YouTube. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time.